Crooked River, Chapter 4. Amos told me that the men had gone across the Crooked River to find 3 Indians who had killed a white trapper named Gibbs and stole all his traps. One of the 3 Indians was real young, but Amos said the young one got away and the second one, an older Indian, killed himself with a gun. So they brought back just one. According to Amos, it took the men 2 days in the pouring rain to drag the Indian back to the settlement, and they had to pull him the whole way at the end of a chain. The savage Indian was known by the name Indian John, and the men were going to put him on trial for murder and hang him. Now my pa had done a lot of terrible things in his life. I could name more than a few of them. He had beat a fellow within an inch of his life, shot a neighbor's dog for drinking a pan of milk in our spring house, thrown a chair once at our poor ma, but nothing as dreadful bad as putting a murderer in our own house above our own heads. Amos insisted that there wasn't any other place. Can't have some savage running loose in the woods killing other poor folks. You want that, Reb? Amos had said he's just gonna stay here until the trial. Pa's got him in leg irons and chains. Ain't gonna hurt nobody. It was true that our settlement on the Crooked River didn't have a jail yet. It had one narrow mud road called Water Street, which ended at the river. About 24 cabins and dwellings, some still unfinished, were scattered along the road. In between there were 3 small taverns for travelers and 2 pitiful half-empty stores where you could buy Bateman's drops and salt and not much else. But even though our settlement didn't have a proper jail, I still didn't think my pa had the right to use our cabin as one. Lying in bed that night, me and Laura couldn't even close our eyes for fear that the Indian would slip down from the chamber loft and murder us in our sleep. The bedstead, that was Laura's and mine, stood closest to the stairs. "What are we gonna do?" I whispered to Laura, my voice rising in the darkness. "If he comes down those steps, what will we do?" Mercy slept on a straw pallet set on the floor beside us. Pa and the boys were on the other side of the old quilt that hung between our beds. I could already hear Pa's rattling snore. Laura whispered that she didn't care what Pa said. She was going to fetch knives from the shelf by the hearth, and we would put them between the ropes that held our bed. So that's what we did. I had the sharp knife that was always used for paring apples, and Laura had our biggest butchering knife. But I wasn't sure if putting knives beneath our bed made me feel more or less terrified at the place we were in, or if we would ever be able to curl our fingers around the handles and use them. And what if the Indian crept down the stairs before we heard him, or a whole band of Indians attacked us from outside? What would we do then? The darkness outside the house was filled with the echoing sounds of early spring frogs. They were loud that night and making a noise like 1,000 jingling harness bells. I knew we would never hear the soft sounds of approaching Indians. Lying there, I couldn't keep my mind from twisting and turning on its own, thinking about all the stories I'd heard of what Indians had done. Pa and the trappers who came through would tell these kinds of stories in low voices, leaving out more words than they kept in. A whole family, 4 children, and an old woman, 70 years old, a crying shame, right in their beds while they slept, near Black Fork, burnt to the ground. What if we were killed by Indians? What would happen then? Would me and Laura open our eyes and find ourselves in the eternalized world? Would Ma suddenly appear next to our bed wearing her faded green dress and lead us away? Thinking about it made my whole body turn cold as pond ice. I surely wanted to be saved from the evil to come, and to see our dear Ma again, but I didn't feel ready to die. Not right then. I didn't. Ma had always been fearful of Indians. "They are the work of the devil," she would tell Pa or anyone else who brought up the subject, "no different than rattlesnakes, catamounts, or wolves. Nothing but savage beasts in human skin. Savage beasts in human skin." I slid my fingers carefully along the bed ropes, searching for the knife again, making certain it was where I remembered. My throat tightened as my fingers suddenly touched the smooth wooden handle, and I felt as if I would be sick. I wanted to take it back to the hearth, but that was the honest truth. I didn't want to keep it under my bed, nor kill anybody with it, not even a savage Indian. In the night I listen. I walk through the darkness with my ears. 7 voices sleep below, the tall man with the black hair of the bear, and 6 other ones. They do not sleep softly. The tall man snores through his nose and rumbles and groans. A small one is fitful and cries out. The 2 girls whisper together like leaves. Shh. I close my eyes and think of my wife Ricebird, and the 2 old ones who live in our bark lodge, and my brave son, Little Otter, and quiet Yellow Wing, only 4 winters old, who does not make a sound when she sleeps. I walk through the other lodges in our half circle, and I think about the men who will not come for me. My father is old. Small Hawk and Half Sky are gone to war. 10 Claws is dead. In the darkness, the 5 lodges of our small band are silent and empty of men.